Let me ask you a question. Do you approach relationships with judgment or with grace? I know, you're probably like, how can this guy ask me that question? Well, it's one I ask myself also, because it's really an important question when we talk about friendship. A lot of people have only experienced judgment most of their life. We have parents who are imperfect human beings, and oftentimes they have done things that were wrong, and they would like us not to do those same mistakes. But instead of sharing their story about what they did and how they came through it and the pain and the consequences that it caused, in order to try and teach us to avoid those same mistakes, oftentimes they just snap at us. Don't do that. Do this. Don't do that thing. I just want the best for you, and so that's why I tell you these things. But they never get to the real issues or go any deeper with you. And so we grow up in that environment and with older people. Maybe you grew up in a church and there were older people that were telling you things that didn't make any sense. Like, we don't wear our hat backwards. You can't wear that, or you can't do this thing or that thing on the Sabbath, or you can't wear that or play that type of music. And it's just judgment, judgment, judgment everywhere we go. What we learn from that encounter, from those relationships, is that people are going to respond in judgment. And oftentimes we then insulate ourselves by responding similarly. We look at the people around us the way that we've been conditioned to look at them, with judgment. And so we approach relationships, we approach mentorships and jobs, thinking, all these people are going to judge me, so I'm not going to share with them my personal experiences. Instead, it's easier for me to just spout off more judgments. And we're perpetuating that cycle. What happens when grace enters the picture? What happens when somebody says to you, you know what happened to me? I've experienced what you're going through. I've been where you've been. And I didn't do everything right. And so I'm not going to come here and tell you, do this or don't do that. But let me tell you that through everything, I discovered a God who forgave me and brought me back to himself. No matter what you do, I'm there for you. I love you. I know I had people like this in my life. I think of one former boss, and he was a old guy at our church, and I worked for him later. And he would tell us stories about how he grew up and what he did for work. And there was one time when I was interested in a girl, and she was interested in me and some other guys too at the same time, it appeared. But I couldn't see straight. I was in high school, and I had many mistakes in front of me. And he took me aside. Mind you, this was years into our relationship. And he said, look, this is not going to be good for you. I know where this is headed. I know that the decisions you would like to make in your life. By this time, I'd already expressed interest in being a pastor. He was like, this is going to be difficult if you go down this particular road to do what you want to do. I'm there for you, no matter what. That made a huge impact on me. Once I had experienced that, grace that works in love, not just a grace that will let everything slide, but one that is willing to come to me with the truth, but also forgiveness and faithfulness and love and loyalty. I am able to approach relationships now and model that behavior Once grace enters into the picture, it can break the spiral of judgment. Just one person showing grace will allow somebody to be like, hey, I can feel safe. I can open up here in this situation. And when they do that and they feel the amazing burden that is lifted from their shoulders and they feel the love that it is responding to their openness and they feel the power of growth that comes through accountability and sharing, they can show that same grace and love to somebody else, and to somebody else, and to somebody else. When we approach relationships with grace, grace that we experience from God, the amazing forgiveness that He shows us, then that perpetuates a cycle of grace that changes lives, that allows for growth. So I want to encourage you, and I want to encourage myself. Let's approach relationships with grace.